Dinner was supposed to be a simple affair, just the usual Sunday night gathering with Ethan. I had set the table with the old china, the set I only brought out for special occasions. I suppose I was feeling sentimental, maybe even a little lonely. My name is Marla, and I've been a dental hygienist for over 30 years, but more importantly, I'm Ethan's mom. I raised him alone after my husband passed, and he's been my whole world ever since. Ethan had called earlier, saying he had something important to tell me. My mind raced with possibilities, but I never imagined the bombshell he was about to drop. As I placed the roast on the table, Ethan walked in, a nervous energy about him. He was followed by Amber, a woman I'd only met a handful of times. She was all smiles, her eyes darting around the room like she was assessing it. "Mom, I've got some news," Ethan started, looking at Amber for support. She nodded, encouraging him. "Amber and I are engaged." I blinked, trying to process the words. Engaged? To Amber? I barely knew her. My heart skipped a beat, and not in a good way. There was something about Amber that made my skin prickle, but I couldn't put my finger on it. "Oh, well, that's wonderful," I managed to say, forcing a smile. I could feel the tension in the room, a tightrope we were all precariously balanced on. Amber beamed, but there was something in her eyes, a flicker of something I couldn't quite decipher. "We're really excited, Marla. And we were hoping, well, we were thinking of moving in here for a little while. Just until we find our own place." The air seemed to thicken, and I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. They wanted to move in? My mind was a whirl of thoughts, none of them comforting. I glanced at Ethan, searching for some sign of hesitation, but he seemed resolute, almost relieved to have it out in the open. I nodded slowly, trying to keep my voice steady. "Of course. We'll make it work." Dinner continued, but the food tasted like cardboard. I watched as Amber took charge, subtly directing the conversation, steering it away from anything too personal. She had a way of doing that, I realized, keeping things just out of reach. Ethan seemed oblivious, caught up in the excitement of their announcement. "So, Amber," I said, trying to sound casual, "what about your work? Will you be able to manage from here?" "Oh, I can work from anywhere," she replied smoothly, her smile never faltering. "Freelance life, you know." Her words were light, but there was an edge to them, something that hinted at a deeper story. As the evening wore on, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being edged out of my own life. Amber was charming, no doubt about it, but there was something calculated about her, a precision in her words and actions that set me on edge. After dinner, as I cleared the table, Ethan and Amber huddled together, whispering about wedding plans. I watched them, a pang of loss hitting me. Ethan had always been my rock, my reason. And now it felt like he was slipping away, drawn into a world I didn't understand. When they finally left, I sat alone in the quiet of the house, the shadows creeping in as the sun dipped below the horizon. I felt a chill, an unsettling sense of foreboding. Something was off, and I needed to find out what. As I sat there, replaying the evening in my mind, I couldn't help but wonder about Amber's past. There were too many questions, too many things that didn't add up. And then there was Ethan, my sweet boy, caught in the middle of it all. I had to protect him, even if it meant digging into things that might be best left buried. I looked around the room at the photos and memories that lined the walls. This was my home, my sanctuary, and I wasn't about to let anyone disrupt it without a fight. The evening had left me with more questions than answers, and as I finally headed to bed, one thought lingered in my mind. What was Amber hiding? And how far was I willing to go to uncover the truth? The morning after Ethan and Amber moved in felt different, like a shift in the air. The house, usually so quiet and predictable, buzzed with a new energy. I tried to keep busy, cleaning and organizing, but Amber's presence was inescapable. Started small. Amber rearranged the kitchen cupboards, claiming it was more efficient. Then she adjusted the thermostat, insisting the house was too cold for the twins. I watched her, biting my tongue, trying to remind myself that this was temporary. "Marla, do you mind if we switch the rooms around a bit?" Amber asked one afternoon, her tone casual but her eyes sharp. "Switch rooms," I replied, feigning ignorance as I wiped down the counter. "Yeah, I was thinking the twins would be better off in the room with more sunlight. It's just healthier, you know?" I nodded, my grip tightening on the cloth. "Sure, whatever's best for the kids." Then wandered in, oblivious to the tension. "Hey, everything okay?" Amber flashed him a smile. "Perfect. Just making the house more kid-friendly." He grinned, clearly pleased, and my heart sank a little more. I felt like I was losing my home inch by inch, but I couldn't bring myself to confront them. Not yet. A few days later, I overheard a conversation that made my skin crawl. I was passing by the living room when I heard Amber on the phone, her voice low and urgent. "Yeah, the money will be sorted soon. Finn's mom is accommodating." I paused, straining to hear more, but she noticed me and quickly ended the call. She turned to me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Everything okay, Marla?" she asked, her voice syrupy sweet. "Fine," I replied, forcing a smile. "Just passing through." Inside, I was anything but fine. Conversation nagged at me, a persistent itch I couldn't scratch. What money was she talking about? And why did she sound so secretive? That evening, I sat with Harriet, my neighbor and confidant, over a cup of tea. Harriet had been my sounding board for years, and I needed her perspective now more than ever. "There's something off about Amber," I confessed, staring into my cup. "I can't put my finger on it, but she's up to something." Harriet nodded, her expression thoughtful. "Trust your instincts, Marla. They've never steered you wrong before." I sighed, feeling the weight of my worries. "I just don't want to lose Ethan. He's so smitten, he can't see what's happening." "Then you need to find out more," Harriet advised, her voice firm. "Before it's too late." Her words echoed in my mind long after she left. I knew she was right, but I didn't know where to start. Amber was a mystery, and I needed to unravel her before she unraveled my life. The following week, Amber's control seemed to tighten. She began questioning my spending, suggesting changes to the grocery list and household budget. It was subtle, almost like she was testing the waters, but it set my nerves on edge. One evening, as I was putting away laundry, I heard Ethan and Amber talking in their room. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but their voices carried through the thin walls. "Ethan, we need to be smart about this," Amber was saying. "Your mom's finances are, well, they're not what I expected." "What do you mean?" Ethan sounded confused, maybe even a little defensive. "I just think we should be more involved, you know? To help her out." I backed away, my heart pounding. The pieces were starting to fit together, and I didn't like the picture they formed. Amber was angling for something, and it involved my finances. I needed answers, and I needed them fast. This wasn't just about protecting my home anymore. It was about protecting Ethan from whatever scheme Amber was concocting. As I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, I made a decision. I would dig deeper, find out what Amber was hiding. And if it meant hiring someone to help me do it, then so be it. The thought of confronting Amber terrified me, but the thought of doing nothing terrified me even more. This was my family, my life, and I wasn't going to let it slip away without a fight. I turned off the light, determined to uncover the truth. Whatever it took, I was ready to face it head on. The sun was barely up when I found myself rummaging through old boxes in the attic. Dust motes danced in the morning light as I sifted through papers, searching for anything that might explain the unease Amber had stirred in me. My late husband's financial records were here somewhere, and I needed to see if there was something I'd missed. As I dug deeper, I stumbled upon a folder marked Investments. My heart pounded as I flipped it open, revealing a tangled mess of statements and receipts. None of it made much sense to me, but there were numbers that didn't add up, figures that seemed out of place. I felt a chill run down my spine. Amber's interest in our finances suddenly seemed more sinister. Just then, a noise from downstairs pulled me back to the present. I quickly closed the folder and headed down, finding Amber in the kitchen, her back to me as she prepared breakfast. "Morning, Marla," she said over her shoulder, her tone bright but her posture tense. "Morning," I replied, trying to sound casual. "You're up early." "Couldn't sleep," she said, turning to face me. "Too much on my mind, I guess." I nodded, watching her closely. "Anything you want to talk about?" She hesitated, then shook her head with a tight smile. "No, just the usual stuff." Her words were light, but there was something in her eyes, a flicker of something I couldn't quite grasp. I wanted to press her, to ask about the phone conversation I'd overheard, but I held back. I needed more information before I confronted her. Later that day, I decided to take a walk to clear my head. As I strolled through the neighborhood, I ran into an old acquaintance of Amber's, a woman named Lisa. We exchanged pleasantries, and I mentioned that Amber and Ethan had moved in with me. "Oh, Amber," Lisa said with a knowing look. "She's always been resourceful." Resourceful? I echoed, curious about the implication. Lisa nodded, her expression cryptic. "Yeah, she's good at finding opportunities, if you know what I mean. Anyway, how are you finding things?" I forced a smile, my mind racing. "Adjusting, I guess. It's a big change." We parted ways, but Lisa's words lingered. Resourceful? Opportunities? It was clear that Amber had a past, one that I needed to understand if I was going to protect Ethan. That evening, as we sat down for dinner, the tension was palpable. Ethan was oblivious, chatting about work and the twins, but I could feel Amber watching me, assessing my every move. "So, Mom," Ethan said, breaking the silence. "Amber and I were thinking about starting a small business together. Something with her design skills and my tech background." I nearly dropped my fork. "A business? That's ambitious." Amber nodded, her smile tight. "We've been discussing it for a while. It seems like the right time." I forced a smile, my mind racing. Was this what Amber had been planning all along? To entangle Ethan in some scheme? I needed to act, and fast. After dinner, I retreated to my room, my heart heavy with worry. I knew I couldn't do this alone. I needed help, someone who could dig into Amber's past without raising suspicion. It was time to call in a professional. The next morning, I met with Roy Hargrove, a private investigator recommended by Harriet. He was a gruff man, no nonsense, with a reputation for getting results. "I need to know everything about Amber," I told him, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "I think she's hiding something, and I need to protect my son." Roy nodded, taking notes. "I'll see what I can find. But be prepared, Marla. Sometimes the truth is more complicated than we expect." His words echoed in my mind as I left, a mix of dread and determination settling over me. I was playing with fire, but I couldn't see another way. I had to know what Amber was up to, even if it meant uncovering truths I wasn't ready to face. As the days passed, the tension in the house grew. Amber's influence over Ethan seemed to deepen, and I felt the distance between us widening. I watched them together, my heart aching with the fear of losing him to whatever game Amber was playing. One evening, as I stood by the window watching the sunset, I realized that my understanding of justice was changing. This wasn't just about righting a wrong, it was about protecting what mattered most to me. I was prepared to fight for my family no matter the cost. The phone rang, pulling me from my thoughts. It was Roy, his voice grave. "I've found something, Marla. We need to talk." My heart skipped a beat. This was it, the moment of truth. As I hung up the phone, I knew that whatever Roy had discovered would change everything. I just hoped I was ready for it. The air felt thick with tension as I sat across from Roy Hargrove in a dimly lit cafe. His expression was serious, a stack of papers between us. He slid them over, and I hesitated, the weight of the moment pressing down on me. "Marla, you need to see this," Roy said, his voice low and steady. I took a deep breath and began to read. The documents painted a troubling picture. Amber's involvement in a financial scam a few years back, her name barely escaping the headlines. It was all there in black and white. I felt a chill run through me. This was what I had feared, but seeing it laid out so plainly made it all the more real. "What do I do with this?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Roy leaned back, his gaze unwavering. "That's up to you. But you need to be careful. If Amber feels cornered, who knows what she might do?" I nodded, my mind racing. This wasn't just about protecting Ethan anymore. It was about confronting a threat to my family. But how could I do that without pushing Ethan further away? Back home, I found Amber in the kitchen, her demeanor as calm as ever. I watched her, my heart heavy with the knowledge I now carried. She moved with a practiced ease, as if she belonged there, but I couldn't shake the feeling that it was all an act. "Marla, is everything okay?" she asked, her tone sweet but her eyes watchful. "Just tired," I replied, forcing a smile. "Long day at work." She nodded, turning back to her task. I studied her, searching for any sign of the woman Roy's report described, but she remained an enigma. I needed to talk to Ethan, but I couldn't risk him siding with Amber without knowing the full story. That evening, I confided in Harriet, needing her steady presence to ground me. We sat on her porch, the twilight casting long shadows around us. "Harriet, it's worse than I thought," I said, handing her the documents. She read through them, her expression growing more concerned with each page. "This is serious, Marla. What are you going to do?" "I don't know," I admitted, feeling the weight of it all. "I can't lose Ethan, but I can't let Amber continue unchecked." Harriet placed a reassuring hand on mine. "You're stronger than you think. You'll find a way." Her words gave me a sliver of comfort, but the path ahead felt fraught with uncertainty. I needed to confront Amber, but the thought of it filled me with dread. The next day, I decided to take the plunge. I waited until Ethan was out, then approached Amber as she worked on her laptop, her fingers flying over the keys. "Amber, we need to talk," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. She looked up, her expression unreadable. "Sure, what's up?" I hesitated, choosing my words carefully. "I know about your past, Amber." "The financial issues." Her eyes widened for a split second before she regained her composure. "I see. And what are you planning to do with that information?" I crossed my arms, meeting her gaze. "I want to know why you're here, Amber. Why Ethan? Why my family?" She sighed, closing her laptop with a soft click. "I love Ethan, Marla. I really do. But yes, I have a past. I've made mistakes and I'm trying to move on. Her words were sincere, but I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more she wasn't saying. You need to be honest with me, Amber. If you really care about Ethan, you'll tell me the truth. She hesitated, her facade cracking just a little. I'm trying to build something real here. I didn't plan for this to happen, but it did. I nodded, feeling the weight of her words. I want to believe you, but I need to protect my son. I need to know that you're not using him. Her eyes softened, and for a moment I saw a flicker of vulnerability. I'm not, Marla. I promise. It wasn't much, but it was a start. As I left the room, I knew the power dynamics had shifted. Amber was no longer the enigma she had been, but someone trying to find her way, just like me. Didn't erase her past, but it gave me a glimpse of hope that we could find a way forward. As I lay in bed that night, I realized that my understanding of protection and revenge was evolving. It wasn't just about shielding Ethan from harm, but about finding a way to bring him back, to mend the rift that Amber's presence had created. I didn't know if I could trust her yet, but I was willing to try for Ethan's sake. And so, with a newfound resolve, I prepared for whatever came next, determined to face it head-on. The dinner table felt like a battlefield, each glance and word a potential landmine. Ethan sat at one end, oblivious to the tension, while Amber and I occupied the opposite ends, our silence heavy with unspoken accusations. I could feel the weight of the documents Roy had given me, like a stone in my pocket, a constant reminder of the choice I had to make. "Mom, you're quiet tonight," Ethan remarked, his fork paused midair. I forced a smile, my heart racing. "Just tired, Ethan." "Long day at work." Amber's eyes flicked to mine, a silent challenge. We both knew what lay beneath the surface, but neither of us dared to bring it up in front of Ethan. Not yet. As dinner progressed, Amber began steering the conversation toward their business plans again, her words smooth and calculated. "We're really excited about the next steps, Marla. It's going to be a big change for us." I nodded, trying to keep my voice steady. "Sounds like you've got it all figured out." Ethan beamed, clearly caught up in the dream. "Yeah, and with Amber's skills, we're bound to make it work." I wanted to scream, to tell him everything, but I knew it wasn't the right time. Instead, I focused on clearing the table, my hands shaking slightly as I gathered the plates. After dinner, as Ethan played with the twins in the living room, I cornered Amber in the kitchen. My voice was low, edged with determination. "We need to talk. Now." She leaned against the counter, arms crossed, her expression defiant. "What's there to talk about?" I took a deep breath, trying to keep my emotions in check. "I know about the scam, Amber. I know what you're capable of." Her eyes narrowed, a flicker of fear crossing her face before she masked it with indifference. "That was a long time ago. I'm not that person anymore." "Then why the secrecy? Why the manipulation?" I pressed, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. She sighed, her posture softening slightly. "I'm trying to protect what I have now. I don't want to lose Ethan." "Then be honest with him," I urged, my voice firm. "He deserves to know the truth." Amber looked away, her silence more telling than any words she could have spoken. I realized then that she was just as trapped as I was, caught in a web of her own making. As I turned to leave, Ethan walked in, his smile fading as he sensed the tension. "Is everything okay?" "Fine," Amber replied quickly, her voice overly bright. "Just discussing some things." Ethan looked between us, clearly unconvinced but unwilling to press the issue. "All right, if you say so." The evening wore on, each moment filled with unspoken words and mounting pressure. I felt like I was on the edge of a precipice, teetering between protecting my son and tearing apart the fragile peace we'd managed to maintain. Later, as I lay in bed, I replayed the evening's events in my mind, my heart heavy with doubt. Was I doing the right thing? Was this quest for justice really about protecting Ethan, or was it about something else? Revenge, perhaps? The thought gnawed at me, making me question my motives. The following day, Harriet stopped by, her presence a balm to my frayed nerves. We sat in the garden, the birds chirping around us as I recounted the latest developments. "You're doing what you think is best, Marla," she said, her voice soothing. "But maybe it's time to involve Ethan. He deserves to know what's going on." "I know," I admitted, my voice barely a whisper. "But I'm afraid of losing him to her." Harriet nodded, her expression understanding. "Sometimes the only way to protect someone is to let them make their own choices." Her words lingered long after she left, a seed of doubt and hope intertwined. I knew I had to talk to Ethan, but the thought of it terrified me. What if he didn't believe me? What if he chose Amber over me? As the sun set, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, I made my decision. I would tell Ethan everything, lay it all on the line. It was the only way to truly protect him, to give him the chance to see the truth for himself. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what lay ahead. This was the moment of truth, and I had to face it no matter the outcome. For Ethan, for my family, and for myself. The house felt emptier than ever, even with Ethan and Amber still living under its roof. Each room echoed with the weight of unspoken words and unresolved tensions. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the pile of dishes that seemed to mirror the chaos in my heart. I knew I had to confront Ethan, but the thought left me paralyzed with fear. The moment came sooner than I expected. Ethan found me later that evening, his expression a mix of concern and frustration. "Mom, we need to talk." I nodded, bracing myself. "I know. Let's sit." We settled in the living room, the silence between us thick and suffocating. I handed him the documents Roy had gathered, my hands trembling slightly. "You need to see this, Ethan." He took them, his brow furrowing as he read. I watched his face change, confusion giving way to disbelief and then anger. "Where did you get this?" "Roy Hargrove, a private investigator," I replied, my voice steady but my heart pounding. "I had to know the truth, Ethan." "I'm sorry." He looked up, his eyes searching mine for answers. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "I didn't want to hurt you," I admitted, feeling the sting of tears. "I was trying to protect you." Ethan shook his head, his voice rising. "Protect me? By going behind my back? How could you do this, Mom?" The accusation in his voice cut deeper than I'd anticipated. I reached for him, desperate to bridge the chasm between us. I didn't know what else to do. "Amber's past." "Is her past," he interrupted, standing abruptly. "People change, Mom. I thought you of all people would understand that." His words hit me like a physical blow. I watched him walk away, my heart breaking as the door slammed behind him. The house seemed to shudder in the aftermath, leaving me alone with my regrets. As the night wore on, I paced the house, my mind a storm of doubt and fear. Had I pushed Ethan away for good? Had my quest for justice turned into revenge, blinding me to the possibility of redemption? The next morning, I found Amber in the kitchen, her expression guarded. "Ethan told me everything." I nodded, feeling the weight of my actions pressing down on me. "I'm sorry, Amber. I had to know." She sighed, her shoulders slumping. "I get it, Marla. I do. But you have to understand, I'm not that person anymore. I love Ethan. I love this family." Her words were sincere, but the damage was done. I felt the sting of my own misjudgments, the realization that my actions had driven a wedge between us all. I was at my lowest point, the path to resolution obscured by the shadows of my own making. As the day dragged on, I retreated to my room, the weight of my decisions pressing down on me. I sat by the window, watching the world outside move on, feeling more isolated than ever. The thought of losing Ethan, of never mending the rift I'd created, was almost too much to bear. But then a knock at the door pulled me from my despair. It was Harriet, her presence a welcome balm to my wounded heart. She sat beside me, her silence a comfort in itself. "I messed up, Harriet," I confessed, my voice breaking. "I've lost him." She shook her head, her eyes filled with compassion. "You haven't lost him, Marla. He's angry, but he'll come around. You just need to give him time." I nodded, though the words felt hollow. Time seemed like a luxury I couldn't afford, not with the stakes so high. But Harriet's faith in me and Ethan was a glimmer of hope in the darkness. As the sun set, casting long shadows across the room, I realized that my understanding of protection and justice had been flawed. It wasn't about shielding Ethan from the truth, but about facing it together as a family. I had let fear drive my actions, and now I had to find a way to rebuild what had been broken. Path ahead was uncertain, but I knew I had to try. For Ethan, for Amber, and for the twins. I had to believe that redemption was possible, that love could heal even the deepest wounds. With renewed determination, I stood, ready to face whatever came next. It was time to fight for my family, not with secrecy and suspicion, but with honesty and understanding. And maybe, just maybe, we could find our way back to each other. The rain tapped steadily against the windows, a rhythmic backdrop to the tension simmering in the living room. I stood by the fireplace, my heart pounding as Ethan and Amber sat across from me, their expressions a mix of apprehension and defiance. This was it, the moment of truth. Culmination of everything that had been building between us. "Ethan, Amber," I began, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "We need to talk. Really talk." Ethan nodded, his gaze unwavering. "I'm listening, Mom." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of my words before they left my lips. "I know I've overstepped. I was scared of losing you, Ethan. Scared of what Amber's past might mean for our family." Amber flinched slightly, but her eyes met mine, a silent challenge. "I understand your concerns, Marla. But I'm not that person anymore." "I want to believe that," I replied, my voice softening. "But I need to know why you didn't tell Ethan. Why hide it?" She hesitated, glancing at Ethan before speaking. "I was afraid. Afraid that my past would ruin everything we've built. I love Ethan, and I didn't want to lose him." Ethan reached for her hand, his expression torn. "Amber, I wish you'd trusted me. We could have faced it together." The room fell silent, the air thick with emotion. I watched them, my heart aching with the realization that this wasn't just about me or Amber's past. It was about trust, about facing fears and finding a way forward. Suddenly, the doorbell rang, breaking the tension. I frowned, glancing at Ethan. "Are you expecting someone?" He shook his head, rising to answer it. Moments later, he returned with a woman I vaguely recognized, Amber's old friend, Lisa. Her presence was an unexpected twist, and I felt the room shift as she entered. "Lisa." Amber's voice was a mix of surprise and caution. Lisa nodded, her expression serious. "I heard about everything, Amber. I came to help." Amber's eyes widened, a flicker of hope crossing her face. "Help? How?" Lisa turned to me, her gaze steady. "Marla, I know you're worried about Amber's past, but you need to know that she's been trying to make things right. I crossed my arms, skeptical but willing to listen. How? She's been working with a group that helps people like us, Lisa explained, her voice earnest. People who've made mistakes and want to change. Amber's been a part of it for months. Amber nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't know how to tell you. I wanted to prove I could be better before coming clean. The revelation hung in the air, a new layer to the story that shifted everything I thought I knew. I looked at Amber, seeing her in a new light, not as a threat but as someone trying to overcome her past. Ethan squeezed Amber's hand, his voice filled with determination. We can work through this together. I felt a swell of emotion, the realization that my quest for justice had been misguided. It wasn't about punishment or revenge, but about understanding and forgiveness. About giving people the chance to change. Amber, I'm sorry, I said, my voice thick with emotion. I should have trusted you. Trusted that you love Ethan and want what's best for him. Amber's eyes softened, tears glistening. Thank you, Marla. I know I have a long way to go, but I'm committed to making it work. The rain continued to fall, a gentle reminder of the cleansing power of truth and reconciliation. As I looked at my family, I realized that we were stronger together, united by our struggles and the love that had brought us to this point. In that moment, I felt a sense of peace, knowing that we had faced our greatest challenge and come through it with a deeper understanding of what it meant to be a family. The themes of justice and forgiveness had intertwined, guiding us toward a new beginning. I stepped forward, pulling Ethan and Amber into a hug, feeling the warmth of their presence. We'll figure it out, I whispered, the words a promise to myself and to them. Together. And as we stood there, the storm outside mirroring the one we'd weathered inside, I knew that we had found our way back to each other. Stronger and more resilient than before. The house felt warmer now, filled with the sounds of life and laughter. Twins played on the living room floor, their giggles a soothing balm to the tension that had once plagued our family. I watched them fondly, feeling a sense of peace that had been absent for far too long. Ethan and Amber were in the kitchen, preparing dinner together. Their movements were synchronized, a testament to the bond they'd rebuilt. I marveled at how far we'd come, how the storm that had threatened to tear us apart had ultimately brought us closer. As I joined them, Amber glanced up, her smile genuine and warm. Marla, can you pass me the salt? I obliged, feeling the ease in our interactions that had once been fraught with suspicion. Of course. It smells delicious in here. Finn chuckled, his eyes twinkling with affection. Amber's secret recipe. You'll love it. I nodded, grateful for the lightness that had returned to our lives. We'd faced our demons and come out stronger, our family ties reinforced by the trials we'd endured. After dinner, as the twins settled down for the night, Ethan and I found ourselves on the porch, the cool evening air a welcome relief. He leaned against the railing, his expression contemplative. Mom, I've been thinking, he began, his voice thoughtful, about everything that happened. I met his gaze, sensing the weight of his words. And, he sighed, a small smile tugging at his lips. I'm glad we went through it. It wasn't easy, but it brought us to where we are now. And I wouldn't trade that for anything. I nodded, feeling the truth of his sentiment. I feel the same way. It taught me a lot about forgiveness, about understanding. Then turned to me, his eyes earnest. Thank you for fighting for us, even when it seemed impossible. His words filled me with a warmth that spread through my chest. I reached out, squeezing his hand. I'll always fight for you, Ethan. For our family. As we stood there, the stars twinkling above, I felt a sense of closure. We'd faced the darkness and emerged into the light, our relationship stronger and more resilient than ever. The next morning, as I tidied up the house, I stumbled upon an old box of letters. Curious, I opened it, my heart skipping a beat as I recognized my late husband's handwriting. Among the letters was one addressed to me, written shortly before he passed. I sat down, unfolding the paper with trembling hands. His words were a balm to my soul, a reminder of the strength of family bonds and the importance of compassion. He spoke of love and forgiveness, of the power of understanding and the legacy we leave behind. Tears filled my eyes as I finished the letter, the weight of his wisdom settling over me like a comforting embrace. It was the final piece of the puzzle, the last step in my journey toward healing and acceptance. As I placed the letter back in the box, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I'd learned so much through this ordeal about myself, about my family, and about the power of empathy. It was a lesson I would carry with me, a guiding light in the years to come. Later, as we gathered for breakfast, Amber approached me, her expression tentative yet hopeful. "Marla, I've been thinking about something." I raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Oh." She nodded, her gaze steady. "I want to share my story, to help others who are struggling like I did. I think it could make a difference." Her words resonated with me, a testament to the growth and redemption she'd found. I smiled, feeling a swell of pride. "I think that's a wonderful idea, Amber. You have so much to offer." As we sat down to eat, I felt a sense of contentment. We were a family, imperfect and ever-evolving, but bound by the love and understanding we discovered through our trials. And as the sun rose, casting its golden light over us, I knew that we were ready to face whatever came next, together. Past was behind us, but its lessons would guide us forward, shaping our future in ways we could only begin to imagine.